It's but then it actually laid me. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I actually wanted to ask you, where do you get your news?
Oh man.
Like you know things, right? Like you watch things, you know things, and you got your sources of news, and it kind of came from this idea that news, like I was having a conversation with Samia, and Samia said, I have no idea what's going on any
Sammy is
day.
Wasim's wife, just for like new listeners.
Yeah.
Sorry
And
though, continue. Sorry.
it's okay. And I mean, I have and she was asking me, she said the only app I have on my phone, I don't know anything about the news, and I feel like as weeks go on, I don't know what's going on in the world. And I said, okay, so social media aside, if you're not following people that are sharing news, and you're not going to see that kind of group, and social media is kind of a little bubble. So outside of social media, what I asked where she gets her news, and she said the BBC, like and a well respected yada yada app. And so then we opened up. I was okay. Show me the BBC app on your phone, and I pulled up the BBC app on her phone, and then I pulled up. I use on my phone my like daily dose of news, like or I go through kind of my highlights and see what's just keep it fresh. Is Reuters. And so I have the Reuters app, and I open up Reuters, and I look. We took both the Reuters app and the BBC app and put them next to each other, and the difference was stark in the sense that you had BBC, especially with the red, like all of the red sensational grab you pictures, headlines, even the headlines. Shorter words, shorter lines, no little paragraph underneath, no real like maybe a little bit of organization, but very, I don't want to read this shit.
Interesting.
And then when we looked at Reuters, I'm like, oh, I mean, I actually don't get that same annoyance that I would literally just looked at this app and was annoyed by it.
I would first for you, I would recommend if you like Reuters, I would look at the AP app, Associated Press app.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now I want to like there's two or three points I'd like to go through here. One is, you know how we talked about when you know different things, you know different languages, you can speak in different. I'm going to put that to the practice here right now as my second point and say when it comes to media for me, I'm like a quarterback. What happens with the quarterback is when the play is played and it's a passing play, he'll generally have a progression of wide receivers he's going to throw to. So his
Mm-hmm.
first option is on his extreme right, then the second, then the third, then the fourth. So one, two, three, four. And you'd like check down. Like if the first one's not available, you look at second, you check down. If he's not available, then you take the option. So what I do is very like I like to go on one, two, three, four. I like to look at all my options. I'm a news junkie. I really am. I'll start the day off with CNN.com. See what's happening there. Then I'll go to BBC. Then I'll go to RT, Russia Today. Um, just skimming. There's not like this isn't when you've read the news for 30 years, you can just sort of get what's going on with the headline. Like US Taliban peace talks continue. That's all I need to know. I don't need to read the like Sheikh and Bush are meeting and they're talking and they're meeting here and they're going to do next. I don't need to know that. I just sort of that's why I don't mind the BBC headline clickbaity headline thing. Even CNN does that quite often. Um
Yeah, that the ticker, the fact that the news has to be 24 hours, and every day there's some breaking news, like there must be breaking news because that's what get eyeballs on the screen.
the Guardian, I just want to add, sorry. The Guardian's also a really good one. And then there's random websites. The Ringer for pop culture and salon.com is just a random one I go to.
Mm,
But I like going on Fox News. I check on my TV, I look at Fox News, Newsmax, and a couple of the other really conservative websites, TV channels. There's new ones popped up. OAN is one of
mm-hmm.
them. So I run the gamut. I'm an independent. I want to just hear what the like crazy right wing has to say, and I want to hear what the crazy left wing has to say, and I want to make up my own mind. Having read everything, like I know. So now this is my third point. This segues into my third point. One of the great disappointments in my lifetime, really, really, was is watching. I've lived in America for the last 8 years. Is watching American news, like the news, ABC News, NBC News, MSNBC, CNN. I'm sorry, I'm gonna list them off. Except for C-SPAN, I think you guys like. It's shocking how cheap and blatant and just uninformative. Uninformative. This is what you're teaching your public. There's an entire world out there. My mom and dad, they're immigrants here.
I've never seen your face so disgusted, and I've known you for a long time.
I've
That
been
was a
wanting.
that was an honest like.
It's bro, like man, you're trying to compete against India, China, the world, all of this stuff. You're not showing any of the world, and when you do show it, you show it in very what you want to show. You don't show a holistic picture. This is where being from like coming having Pakistani parents and having lived there for a year, you then see sort of like you get to see there is a life there. It's not just what you guys sort of have been raised with. And we grew up again, third culture kids post 9/11,
Man,
like just to add
I used to take my
qualifiers.
Camel BMW all the
Yeah.
way to the big tent that we called School Tent 101. Right?
Exactly. You get what I'm saying? You like so, and I put a lot of the blame on the media. That's why when I just want to finish this point, when Trump says fake news, I as an independent agree with him on this point. On this one point, yes, the news quite often is fake. And when you watch documentaries, um, I just watched Allen versus Farrow, which was about Woody Allen and Mia Farrow. uh Within that story, by episode 3 or episode 4, they're talking about once again the media's complicity in keeping the story silent. So I'm sorry, I'm going over a number of things, but like over here all day long they talk about the media is the most important thing. We're the fourth estate, we're like we're in the constitution, we're this that. Then you guys need to act like it. You guys need to be that responsible. You're being jokers, jokers,
I think, and
evil jokers.
I think that's where probably the first sort of trick of the magician and like just going back to that analogy, it's when you present it as like, because everyone wants to everybody presents themselves as respectable, and it's your job as the listener to lift the veil and to see, okay, because when I studied anthropology, one of the things that you learned was that there's always inherent bias. So there's always an inherent bias that you carry, and so you state it up front in your study. So in your study, you say, this is my inherent biases. This is where I'm this is, you strive to name your biases and say, this is it, and this is what I'm thinking. And then, so now that you read it, you know what lens is doing the reading. I mean, kind of going, we're talking, I think there's two things. There's media and there's journalism. And with media, you're talking about that ticker that's coming at you and the lens that is that is produced for you to keep you watching. And there's a graph that's like where every media outlet kind of falls in terms of the spectrum of political perspective, I guess, political thought.
Like the political spectrum, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why I chose Reuters was because it was one of the ones that kind of fell in the middle. And I didn't have the time to just get CNN or just get Fox. It wasn't going to be Fox, but even though Fox is kind of entertaining, but it's like I watch it for entertainment, not necessarily for, but that's the show. That's the trick.
That's my gripe right there. I watch it for entertainment, not to learn. And me too, by the way. I watch it for entertainment, not to learn.
Well,
Like
during the Trump years, where we were getting our like Trump news, wasn't CNN or Fox. It was on the Late Show. So we would watch the comedic shows because I mean, the guy gave them all the material they needed, and it was like, this is what happened, and now we're making fun of it so you can manage it and deal with it, as sad as it all is, even though this is real news.
Yes, yes. This is, bro, this was, it was Redux, like the remix of the George Bush presidency. At one point, like I remember it very clearly in college watching Jon Stewart and Stephen the Colbert
Yeah,
Report, like the
yeah.
original thing, right? And it was through George, because of just how people in America, we went over this last time, they've forgotten how bad George W. Bush was and how evil and corrupt he was. They've
Mm,
forgotten, and dumb.
mm.
They've forgotten that. And the late night fever started with that. Remember Jon Stewart, Colbert for George, it was about George W. Bush. And now Trump gave Trevor Noah, Seth Meyers, Samantha Bee, all of these people. There's a whole bunch of
There's a
others
lot
that
of
like,
people, and
yeah.
they did that sort of. I mean, they're political satires, so that's like their job. That's what they do, for and we're happy to see them. Honestly, like any they this not only needs to be tolerated. This needs to be man. Anyway, uh,
How did we get there? Like that's
yeah,
sort, and that's why I go back to the media. That's why this discussion is kind of important, or they need to hear this, is because when I'm going to late night or John Oliver for my information, there's something wrong.
yeah.
There's something structurally, systematically, there's something wrong.
And now I'm gonna contrast that to journalism. And so I think what happened, and this is like just a theory off of the top of my head, but what I think is that, journalism was the sort of the media, or mass media, or modern media, was the vehicle for which journalism was published, not practiced, but published. So it's where things went through. In And now, with, I mean, like, generally you're seeing, what is it, the death of sort of the news media age, because of a journalist can literally write an article, host it on their blog, and share it on Twitter and have a following.
Wait,
Similar to sports writers, similar to any type of analysis that happens in using written form.
so would you say that uh media is dying or journalism is dying, or that media is growing or journalism is growing?
I mean, dying
Like,
is a heavy
do,
term. I think changing is
good,
a
good,
better
very
term. I
good.
like I wouldn't say it's dying. I mean, maybe a form of it is dying, but a new form is being born, where there's a bit more of
That's
a.
the that's the American journalist in me.
Is that what you're saying? All right.
It has to be life or death. It cannot be
Man,
anything in the
if
middle.
it does not turn into a meme, it is not newsworthy. I think news media now is a meme machine. It,
Yeah, yeah, man. I know
and
what you
like, I
mean.
think imagine that's one of the KPIs, or the measures at the end of the year, where they're like, how many memes came off of our exclusive network,
Yeah.
right? Like what do we got? What do we got? The Bernie Sanders meme with the mitts. That was a big win right off the bat. That was
Yeah, yeah. That was the meme.
yeah,
That was
because
the meme for a
they're the
while,
only ones that
bro.
get to cover these shows, right? Like, and that's where I guess the illusion is all played, is that even when you have like a White House press briefing or whatever, the people that are allowed to sit there and ask the questions, they have to get security clearance, they have to get to go through all these things. It's not like you just let any, like, if I'm Joe Schmo, and I'm a journalist, like, I don't know why I would be called Joe Schmo as well. Sorry, Joe. But if I'm Joe Schmo and I would like to be a journalist, and I go and I want to, I don't know what you would have to do to kind of apply and to cover it, and to get a question in, and because, like, that's not just open. And I think, but these are the same people that push the narrative. And so that's where, during this time where everything is changing, that's the opportunity of today is questioning why we have journalism, and what is good journalism. Why do we have the news media, and what, like, I don't hate that there's a CNN and there's a Fox. I actually love that there's a CNN and there's a Fox. There should be a CNN and a Fox. Are kind of the issues is when they pile up all issues into, again, not economics, just social.
Well, I love having the options. I just want to be clear here. It's not like I love having the options. I just wish they were better
So
options.
you
They
wouldn't
were
shut down like
no, no,
a
not at
news. No,
all.
no.
No, Fox News, you're allowed to do your right wing thing. But what I would do, in the 80s, there was that media bill that was passed by Reagan. Before it, if you had a news show, if it was categorized by the FCC as news or information, you would have to show both sides, and both sides would have to have equal time.
Mhm.
That was by law. So, like, you would have producers at the end of the show, checking the tape, counting how long each party's been talking. That was abolished by Reagan, Ronald Reagan, of course, the godfather of all of this American lunacy, presidential lunacy. um, he abolished that law, which is what gave rise to Fox News, the hyper one view, like this. And if you watch the Dick Cavett show or old American interviews with like James Baldwin or Malcolm X, the black and white, everyone smoking, Rod Serling, uh, it's amazing how informative it is. And it's amazing how podcasty it is, or it's very civil and they're talking. And you just don't see that today. And there's even a documentary, Buckley versus McKinley, and it's about a Democrat versus a Republican. They debated 3 times. They were just strategists on TV, and they debated. It's a documentary about those 3 debates, and they hated each other. It's called Worst of Enemies or something, Best of Enemies maybe. They hated each other, but they were still very civil and very courteous with each other. Nowadays I feel it's very, viral style, like I need to say something completely outrageous to make it on the internet,
Yeah.
versus just everyone calm down, let's get to like a
Well, and it's
logical.
so easy to say. Like the thing is that it's rewarded. Like the more out like the and that's the mass, like the mass, but it's also encouraged. Like outrage is a
It's almost chicken and the egg situation we're talking here. Like, is it the public that's consuming it or the media that's publishing it and putting it in consumers' eyes, incepting it, if you will?
yeah, like that term, the sex sells, baby. Sex
Yeah,
sells.
yeah,
What
man.
you want me to do, man? They buy it. What do you
That's
like?
exactly that. Like, what do you want me to do? They buy
And
it.
I gotta make those dollars. I gotta make that money. And so, hey, and suddenly all like nothing else. Oh, okay, yeah, you do. What you gonna do? It's the economics.
It's America, baby. Yeah, yeah.
It's
At least
how
here,
we
like, it's
it's
like
what we have decided overall. I mean, we have decided either implicitly or not that this is what we and that's the thing about living in a world. When you live in the world, you can't see the frames of references. So when you and that's kind of when you wake up to life, when you grow up, and you begin to take in where your position is and probably change and define who you are, your identity, especially when you're younger, around 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12. Like that's when you're really defining who you are, and you're getting as many experiences as possible, hopefully. um you you wake up to the idea of where you're at, but even within that, there are limits to what you can see by when you stand on the rock, right? Like, because you're standing on the rock, you can't see the rock that you're standing on. You can't see your own eyeballs. You can't hear your own like
your
hearing.
depth perception.
Yeah, you
Absolutely.
can't. You like it's built into the situation, and knowing those limits or becoming aware of those limits humbles your identity, your thought process, I think, because ultimately that's where you're trying to avoid the no. I mean, you're trying to avoid, these are all like big words, but you don't know anything. And so that a lot gives you room to change your mind, gives you room to be a person like that's okay that they're wrong. They can be wrong. They don't have to dig deep and turn into a calloused rock of a person.
Well, I just want to bring it full circle back to the media thing. That's why I have my 4 or 5 options. I go through like the political spectrum from right to left of media, uh, Fox News to MSNBC to independent news, is because I want to read and I just want to hear what everyone's saying, and I'll make up my mind after that.
Yeah, if you do make up, and you also can
If
change it.
exactly.
I can also change it. I'm open to new information. I don't know everything.
Absolutely.
right? And
Exactly that.
which is
Yep.
what
Yep.
you gain. I feel like the older you get, the more you know you don't know anything. There's a like if you know you're enlightened, you're not enlightened. If you
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
know, that's the enlightened one. like
That's yeah, yeah. That's the second perspective is genuinely where I come from. That's why when I get my media, I try and just let me hear what everyone has to say. I don't know
mm,
anything. I don't, bro. I've been around the world. I don't know anything. I'm
yeah,
serious. I'm telling you, I do not know anything.
of course not.
Like,
I yeah,
like,
I feel like it's hard to pretend to know. There was a quote that I read a long time ago that has always kind of stuck with me, which was that questions open your mind, answers close them.
yeah, that's
And so
cool.
they, you're kind of wary of answers because they shut down all your mind, and questions keep you awake, keep
Guessing,
you
like you're
open.
forced
It
to.
keeps you
Yeah,
open, and that's, I feel like one of the things is, as I get older and as I age, it's little old young me, little old me. Uh, as I age, I feel like that's what the battle is the internal struggle is to keep that openness, is
the
to keep,
curiosity
yeah,
that
they keep
like
it open and not succumb to the, would it be the negativity? I mean, that's not the word I'm
not
looking
even
for.
negativity, just what you know, the comfort, your
Mm,
comfort zone.
yeah.
Shout out Toronto.
So what people don't